Los Angeles bracing for another day of unrest following 3 days of clashes between authorities and demonstrators protesting the U.S. president's immigration crackdown. Full picture there, vehicles set ablaze over the weekend as police declared all of downtown Los Angeles an unlawful assembly area. At least 56 people have been arrested in the past 48 hours. Now, tear gas and rubber bullets also fired to disperse crowds as tensions escalated following Donald Trump's move to send in the National Guard. Some 300 troops are in the city, and there are plans to increase that number to at least 2,000. The National Guard are often deployed with the consent of local authorities. Now, this is the first time in 60 years that a U.S. president has bypassed a state governor to send them in. California Governor Gavin Newsom has formally requested the Trump administration withdraw the troops, calling the deployment unlawful and a serious breach of state sovereignty. He has also threatened legal action. Earlier, CNA spoke to Philip Crowther in Los Angeles about President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard.
What we've seen in the past, when there have been mass protests that have turned violent in other cities in the United States, Baltimore, for example, comes to mind, or Ferguson, Missouri as well. What we've seen when there has been National Guard deployed is that they essentially protect buildings, federal buildings, be it office buildings, but also prisons, for example. They don't necessarily get into direct confrontation with protesters. As we can see here, it is the LA Police Department that is largely doing that right now. As we speak, we are seeing some of the police officers seemingly aiming towards this group of protesters that is close to us. So we're just going to get down here, but we'll continue shooting here, and we'll be able to tell you what is happening. So essentially what's being used here are rubber bullets, and this is what's making protesters run away into the distance, trying to get them away from this intersection right here. Again, you asked me about the National Guard. This is not the National Guard doing this right now. They might be asked to do so in the future. At this point, we know that there are a few hundred National Guard troops here in Los Angeles right now. There are expected to be 2,000 altogether. That at least is the order that came from US President Donald Trump. They haven't all arrived here yet, but from what we're seeing here today, things can, of course, escalate as they are right now. And maybe the federal government will believe that there will be more troops that will be needed here on the ground in LA.
Well, we have more from Nick Harper speaking to us live from Washington, D.C. First of all, Nick, more National Guard troops expected in the coming days?
That's right, Jill. Yeah, the expectation is that that presence on the ground in LA will simply grow. Several hundred there at the moment. 2,000, though, have been given orders to deploy, and they are en route to the city with the possibility of more being added. And therefore, the fear is on both sides that this could escalate. The Trump administration perhaps feels that there will be a need to send more troops to the city if those protests continue to grow, if violence increases. But on the protesters' side, they fear that the extra presence of troops beyond the LA Police Department will perhaps cause an escalation in confrontations. That will all play out in the coming days. But there's also that threat that's been posed by the US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, to send in the Marines. Now, we've seen Gavin Newsom, the California governor, having a furious reaction to all of this. As we know, Donald Trump essentially went above his head to federalize the troops, to send them on with the White House's say-so, not working, as the White House normally would, with state governors to coordinate all of this. And because of that, Gavin Newsom says it is illegal, says he plans to sue the Trump administration. He's called it deranged behavior. And he's also taken to social media to speak out to Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, who's been in charge of the immigration raids, to challenge Tom Homan to arrest him. It will be a matter of what happens in the coming hours and days, whether all of this grows, because there is the fear that it won't just be limited to Los Angeles. We've already seen protests spread to San Francisco, also in the state of California. About 60 people arrested there overnight, and some violent behaviour, including assault and damage to property happening there in the city.
Yeah, and all this comes while Trump's travel ban begins today. Are we expecting any knock-on impacts or effects at border crossings, whether it be the airport for travellers and people moving about?
Well, Jill, potentially what we could see is extra fuel being added to that fire in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, potentially other cities, with protests and protesters who were already unhappy about immigration raids, now being unhappy about this travel ban that's been put in place. And that could give them extra impetus to continue those protests. 19 countries have now been banned from the United States, 12 of them completely, many of them in the Middle East and in Africa, but also Myanmar on that list. And there's another 7 that face partial restrictions, including Cuba and Venezuela. But the Trump administration is saying that they're not stopping there. There is the possibility of other countries around the world finding themselves on this travel ban list. The Trump administration saying they could add more as threats emerge around the world. During Donald Trump's first administration, we saw that travel ban in place against largely Muslim-majority countries. This travel ban is bigger, it's broader, it is expanded. The one last time around came into effect with immediate effect, and people were caught out because they were flying to the United States. They landed and they were told to get back on planes and return. People were given a few days warning here, and the expectation is that we won't see the type of scenes unfolding this time around that we saw back in 2017.
All right, good stuff, Nick. Thank you so much. Nick Harper reporting live there from Washington, D.C.